Usually, when we talk about risk on a construction project, there's the sort of comforting expectation of visibility, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like if you pour a bad concrete foundation, you can physically see those stress cracks forming. Or, if a tower crane is improperly rigged, the danger is just right there in front of you.
Yeah, the risk is tangible. You can put caution tape around it, photograph it, and most importantly, you can just physically remediate it with your crew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you step into the really complex world of federal contracting compliance, you get introduced to a totally different kind of threat.
Oh, a very invisible threat.
Right. Suddenly, the biggest liability to your construction business isn't something happening out in the mud on the job site. It's a missing paragraph in a subcontract.
Or just an outdated internal training manual sitting in an HR file somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, welcome to today's deep dive for the Scaling Legends podcast. I'm Justine, your host.
And I'm Nicole. Today is Friday, April 10th, 2026.
And we have an incredibly time-sensitive mission today that you, the listener, really need to be aware of.
Yeah, the clock is loudly ticking on this one.
It really is. There are exactly 15 days until a massive compliance deadline hits on April 25th. And this is regarding the new Anti-DEI executive order that was just signed a couple of weeks ago on March 26th.
Right. So if you or your company do literally any federal construction work, our sole mission today is to break down these new requirements so you can protect your livelihood.
And really quickly, before we get into the operational mechanisms of this order, I want to set a very clear baseline for you here. We are not here to take political sides left or right regarding this mandate.
No, absolutely not. Our focus is strictly impartial reporting on the facts. The legal realities of this mandate are very rigid, and our job is just simply to help you navigate those realities.
Right, so you can keep your business compliant, keep your contracts secure, and keep your workforce active. So, knowing that we have this incredibly tight 15-day window, the immediate question I think every contractor is asking right now is, who exactly is in the crosshairs here?
Oh, everyone. Everyone is.
Because traditionally, when a sweeping new executive order drops, the assumption is that only the massive general contractors, like the prime contractors sitting in the main office, bear the brunt of the regulatory burden.
Yeah, and relying on that assumption right now is a massive trap. The scope of this mandate is aggressively broad.
How broad are we talking?
Well, it certainly applies to the prime contractors, obviously, but the requirement mandates compliance for every single federal contract, and it applies to every single subcontractor at every single tier.
Wait, every single tier?
Every tier.
So we're talking about like a compliance domino effect here. Let's visualize a massive stack of dominoes for a second. You could have a flawlessly compliant general contractor at the very top of the project.
Right. Their manuals are updated, HR is retrained, all of that.
Exactly. But if, a tier 4 landscaping subcontractor at the very bottom of the chain who's handling just a tiny fraction of the total project value if they violate the mandate, that vulnerability travels all the way up the chain.
It absolutely does. It can knock down the entire stack of dominoes right back to the GC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the federal government is basically deputizing the private sector to police its own supply chain. So if you hold a federal contract, you are now legally responsible for ensuring the compliance of the companies you hire.
And the companies they hire, and so on.
Exactly, all the way down. And the penalties for a broken link in that chain are honestly devastating. The initial repercussion is just immediate contract cancellation.
Which is bad enough.
Right. But the severe, existential threats are full debarment from federal work and False Claims Act treble damages.
Okay, I really want to unpack treble damages because that just sounds like standard legal jargon until you realize what it actually does to a construction firm's balance sheet. Treble means triple.
Yep, times 3.
The government doesn't just ask for the assessed damages back.
Yeah.
They mathematically multiply the financial damages by 3.
It's insane. It is a highly punitive measure designed specifically to make an example out of non-compliance.
Wow.
Yeah. So if an auditor determines that your non-compliant hiring practices or, your failure to flow down a clause cost the government a certain amount, you're paying back 3 times that amount.
Plus potential per-claim civil penalties on top of it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And just to put into perspective how devastating that math is, I was looking at Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report, and it highlights this really stark reality for the industry. For construction firms where, say, 30 to 50% or more of their revenue comes from federal work,
Which is a lot of mid-sized firms.
Failing to comply with this order isn't just a heavy fine you absorb as a cost of doing business. It's a total existential threat. You lose that revenue stream overnight, you face treble damages that just wipe out your operating capital, and then you face debarment.
And debarment means you are fully blacklisted. You are completely shut out of bidding on or even participating in any future federal projects.
The doors just close.
The doors close. That is the reality of the stakes here.
So, knowing that treble damages and debarment could essentially wipe out a firm, the next logical question is, what are the specific tripwires that actually trigger a violation in the first place?
Right. What are the actual rules?
Exactly. The executive order lays out 6 mandatory obligations. Let's group these to make them, a bit more digestible, starting with what we can call the human element.
Okay, I like that. The human element basically covers the first 4 rules, which dictate how you handle your workforce. So rule number 1 is hiring certification.
Okay.
You have to formally, legally certify that your hiring practices are entirely merit-based and do not factor in race or ethnicity in any capacity.
Got it.
Then rule number 2 is promotion neutrality. This is the exact same concept, but applied to your internal advancement tracks.
Okay, so you must be able to prove to an auditor that promotions are handled without any disparate treatment based on race or ethnicity.
Exactly.
So if an auditor pulls, like your employee handbook, or looks at your HR advancement criteria, there just cannot be any metric that fast tracks a specific demographic. It has to be purely based on merit, tenure, or skill.
Correct. Which leads right into rule number 3, race-neutral training programs. All company training programs must be strictly race-neutral. And rule number 4 is DEI program compliance. So if your company currently have diversity, equity, and inclusion programs operating internally, they have to be comprehensively audited and brought into compliance with this executive order.
Ensuring absolutely no disparate treatment.
Exactly.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second, specifically on rule number 3 regarding the race-neutral training.
Yeah.
Because everything has to be strictly race-neutral, I am immediately thinking about the federal DBE programs, the disadvantaged business enterprises. Are those suddenly illegal?
That is the big question.
Right. And what about our standard safety and apprenticeship initiatives that often target specific underserved communities, like just to bring new blood into the trades?
Yeah, that is definitely the primary source of panic across the industry right now. But this is where understanding the actual legal mechanics is crucial. The scope of this executive order is strictly limited to disparate treatment based on race and ethnicity within your corporate programs.
Okay.
It does not affect safety training, it does not affect standard apprenticeships, and it doesn't impact general workforce development.
Oh, that's huge. So if a contractor is running an apprenticeship initiative to get young workers certified on heavy machinery, they do not need to scrap that program out of fear.
Not at all. In fact, this specific concern was just addressed at the AGC Federal Contractors Conference on April 8th. The consensus there clarified that standard workforce development and safety programs are entirely safe from this mandate.
Okay, that is a relief.
Yeah. And furthermore, regarding your concern about DBE programs, those actually operate under an entirely separate legal mechanism. They're authorized by statutory authority.
Meaning they're created by laws passed by Congress, not by an executive order from the White House.
Bingo. Because they have that completely separate statutory protection, those DBZ certifications and project requirements remain perfectly valid.
Okay, that is a massive relief for the industry. Because I know scaling contractors, they heavily rely on those DBE partnerships to meet their project goals and win bids.
Definitely. So do not throw out your DBE partnerships. The target here is very specifically internal corporate programs, hiring protocols, or trainings that mandate disparate treatment.
All right, so we have the 4 rules making up the human element. What about the final 2 rules? Let's call this part the paper trail.
The paper trail. This is where the actual enforcement happens. So rule number 5 is government audit access. By accepting a federal contract, you are legally required to grant the government full access to your records to audit your compliance with these new rules at literally any time.
Anytime. Wow.
Yeah. And rule number 6 is the mechanism behind your domino effect analogy, earlier mandatory flow-down clauses.
Oh, wait.
You basically must legally include these exact compliance requirements in every single subcontractor agreement you sign, forcing the rules down to the next tier.
Okay, so now that we understand the 6 rules and those really vital exceptions regarding DBEs and safety programs, how does a contractor actually execute these operational changes before the clock runs out.
Right, because the clock is definitely ticking.
Because in the construction world, an April 25th deadline is basically tomorrow.
It's yesterday, honestly. The timeline is aggressive, so let's just map it out. April 25th is the initial compliance deadline, literally just 15 days from today.
Okay.
By that date, you need to have your initial internal audits completed and your subcontractor flow-down clauses updated.
Got it.
Then, following that initial deadline, there will be a 60-day period where the government will issue FAR guidance.
And FAR stands for Federal Acquisition Regulation, right?
Correct. And that guidance will provide the highly technical, really granular specifics of the enforcement.
So April 25th is the immediate scramble to get the baseline in order, followed by 60 days to digest the FAR guidance. What is the final milestone then?
The final milestone is the 120-day mark. At 120 days, there is a full compliance review expectation. By that day, you are absolutely expected to be comprehensively compliant and fully ready to survive a federal audit.
Okay, so we have the timeline. Now you, the listener, need a playbook. And based on our deep dive into the source material, we have distilled this into a 6-step compliance action plan.
Perfect.
Before we talk about the paper, we have to deal with the programs. Step 1, audit existing programs.
Yeah, you really need your HR and management teams to look at every single hiring, promotion, and training protocol you currently have. You have to evaluate it strictly against the rule of no disparate treatment based on race or ethnicity.
Which flows directly into step 2. Rename and reframe initiatives to ensure neutrality. Like if you have a workforce development program that contains language that could even be construed as violating the order, you need to rewrite the charter of that program.
Exactly. You shift the focus to reflect completely neutral criteria, like maybe economic need-based metrics or geographic zones, rather than demographic ones.
Right.
And then step 3 is where the really heavy lifting begins. Update all subcontractor agreements with the new clauses.
With the dominoes.
The dominoes. You must physically insert the new mandatory flow-down clauses into every new contract you issue. And for your active federal subcontracts, you're probably looking at issuing sweeping change orders or legal amendments just to ensure the current subs are bound by the new rules.
Which brings us to step 4. Document everything. And I really want to circle back to this step in a moment because it represents a massive operational hurdle.
Yeah.
But let's just round out the playbook first. Step 5. Consult an employment attorney.
Seriously, do not try to play armchair lawyer here. The stakes are debarment and treble damages.
Yeah, that's not something to mess with.
No. Have outside legal counsel review your updated policies and your new subcontract boilerplate to just ensure they meet the exact letter of the executive order.
Absolutely. And finally, step 6. Do not overreact. Like we discussed with the DBE programs and the SAINTE trainings, please do not dismantle valid, beneficial apprenticeships out of sheer panic.
Yeah, follow the facts of the mandate, not the industry rumors. Following those 6 steps will keep a firm grounded.
But honestly, Nicole, I have to challenge the practicality of step 4.
The document everything step.
Yes, document everything. From a purely operational standpoint, on a muddy job site, how does a mid-sized scaling contractor actually document everything for a potential government audit across every single tier without absolutely burying their project managers in administrative work?
It's tough.
I mean, we are talking about tracking hundreds of subcontract training logs and hiring sheets across multiple projects simultaneously.
It is a critical vulnerability. If a firm is relying on manual folders, stuffed filing cabinets, or, having a project manager search through thousands of unread emails to survive a government audit, they are setting themselves up for absolute failure.
Oh, for sure.
Just imagine a federal auditor actually shows up to the job trailer. They ask for proof that the Tier 3 HVAC subcontractor signed the new flow-down clause. If your PM has to spend 3 days digging through a disorganized truck cab or a messy digital inbox to find that single signature,
You're already failing the audit.
you failed. The government expects immediate transparency.
And it's not just the extreme risk of failing the audit, it's the sheer daily operational drag it puts on the team. I was looking again at Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report, and the data makes it incredibly clear. The administrative burden of manual compliance tracking is literally one of the leading causes of burnout for construction project managers.
Oh, I totally believe that.
Right. They are hired to pour concrete, manage crews, and build infrastructure. They are not hired to act as federal compliance paralegals.
Exactly. When you force a builder to become an administrator, the project timeline just suffers. Mistakes are made, and profitability plummets. You simply cannot solve a 2026 regulatory nightmare with a 1995 manual filing system.
It just doesn't work.
No. The volume of paperwork required to track compliance down to a Tier 4 landscaping sub is just beyond human capacity to manage efficiently.
So if manual tracking is a guaranteed path to PM burnout and audit failure, how is the industry actually solving this?
Well, the industry is aggressively pivoting to purpose-built AI. Contractors are adopting systems designed specifically to shoulder this exact type of heavy administrative burden.
Oh, okay.
Smart Business Automator is a prime example of this shift. They have engineered features specifically to handle complex, multi-tier documentation without burying the project management team in paperwork.
Let's actually look at the underlying mechanics of how that technology works, because I know one of the biggest bottlenecks for any team is simply checking the specifications. I mean, a standard spec book for a federal project can be, 500 pages of dense legalese?
Easily. And human eyes easily miss things when reading page after page of boilerplate. This is where a feature like compliance and spec checking comes into play. The AI utilizes natural language processing to automatically review your project documentation against these new federal requirements.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So instead of a project manager spending a full week reading a massive spec book looking for missing flow-down clauses, the AI scans the entire document in seconds. It literally catches the gaps and highlights the liabilities before they ever become an expensive problem.
I mean, that alone saves days of administrative friction. But what happens when the auditor actually knocks on the trailer door and demands the paperwork?
That is solved by smart document organization. Think of it as installing rebar in your paperwork. It provides invisible structural integrity to your files. The system auto-tags and categorizes everything as it comes in. Permits, RFIs, daily logs, and crucially, those signed subcontractor agreements.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, so when the auditor asks for proof, your team just types Tier 3 HVAC flow-down clause into the system, and it is instantly on the screen. No digging, no panic, immediate proof of compliance.
But getting to that point means you actually have to collect those signatures first,
Yeah.
right? And forcing hundreds of subcontractors to sign updated amendments is a logistical nightmare.
It really is, which is why custom AI workflows are becoming standard. You basically configure the system to automatically update your standard subcontractor boilerplate with the new anti-DEI clauses.
Okay.
The AI then routes those updated agreements seamlessly to the specific subs, tracks who has opened them, tracks who has signed, and flags exactly who is holding up the process.
Okay, but what if a subcontractor tries to be clever? Like, what if they strike out the flow-down clause, sign the rest of the document, and send it back, hoping you just won't notice the red line hidden on page 40?
Ah, that is the beauty of document intelligence. The AI extracts and verifies key details. It ensures that the mandatory clauses are not just present, but properly executed and unaltered by every sub at every tier.
That's incredible.
It really takes that entire domino effect anxiety and just hands the monitoring over to an intelligence that doesn't sleep, doesn't get fatigued, and doesn't miss a missing signature.
It is effectively neutralizing the invisible risks we talked about at the very beginning of the show. So, what does this all mean when we take a step back? It means that while this executive order is a massive, complex hurdle, it is a highly manageable one if you implement the right processes and leverage the right technology.
Right, but you have to take action immediately. The timeline allows zero room for procrastination. April 25th is not a suggestion from the government. It is a hard, legally binding deadline.
Which really brings us full circle to our opening thought. We established that the most dangerous risks on a federal project aren't always the physical cracks in the concrete, they are the invisible liabilities hiding in your filing cabinets.
Absolutely.
And I want to leave you with a really provocative thought to mull over as you audit your business this week. If this new anti-DEI executive order is forcing you to tear open your subcontractor agreements right now, just to update these flow-down clauses, what other outdated legacy liabilities are currently hiding in your boilerplate contracts?
Ooh, that is the real hidden danger. If you haven't audited your standard sub-agreement in 5 years, the clauses inside it represent the massive unknown risk.
Right. Let this mandate serve as a forced wake-up call to review all of your legal documentation. Because if a single missed flow-down clause from this order can trigger treble damages, just imagine what an outdated, poorly written indemnity clause or some ancient safety provision is silently doing to your firm's risk profile right now.
It's scary to think about. Use this forced audit as an opportunity to clean house. But remember the urgency. You need to review your programs and your contracts today. April 25th is exactly 15 days away. The clock is loudly ticking.
So here is your mission for today. If you know a contractor who is navigating federal construction compliance right now, send them this deep dive. It could literally save them from debarment and False Claims Act treble damages. Be the person who gives them the heads up before the deadline hits.
Yeah, share the knowledge.
And hit follow on whatever app you're listening on so you don't miss tomorrow's intel.
And to learn more about how to protect your business, automate your compliance, and scale without drowning your team in the administrative burden we discussed today, visit smartbusinessautomator.com.
Stay compliant, stay safe out there, and keep building. We'll see you on the next deep dive.